All right, everyone, welcome to tonight's session. Tonight I'm going to be looking at factoring quadratic equations. I know there was a request for me to do something on this in the group. So what I'm starting with, what I want you to understand is that there's a relationship between expanding brackets, especially two brackets, and factoring quadratic equations. So I'm going to I have an example here, a question that I'm going to work out. So it's going to help with some of your skills with expanding brackets. I'm going to look at it and then we're going to work it backwards and see if it takes us back to a quadratic equation. So on the board, I have x plus 2 into x plus 3. So when we have two brackets next to each other like that, what I really want to do is I'm going to have to multiply everything in this bracket here by the things in this bracket here. Yeah? So let's do that. I'm going to draw some arrows. Let me just get a different color pen so you can see the arrows. Right? And let me just take these lines off from underneath here. Excellent. Right. So to multiply these two brackets, what I'm really doing is I'm taking this value of x here, right? And I'm going to multiply it by everything inside of this bracket. So x is going to multiply by x, right? And x is also going to multiply by 3. When I'm completed with that, I'm going to take this number here, 2 plus 2, and multiply it by the contents of this bracket. So if I was to write this differently, what it would look like really is I would have, let's x, right? Because we say we're multiplying x by the contents of this bracket, which is x plus 3. Right, so this just as a refresher on expanding brackets. And then I'm taking this plus 2 and multiplying it by the contents of the second bracket. The bracket is x plus 3. Now, you don't usually write this line. I'm just writing this for clarity's sake, so you'd understand what's happening here. Sometimes the arrows could be a bit misleading. But as I said, x is multiplying by x plus 3, everything in here, and plus 2 is also multiplying by that. So if that happens, x multiplied by x is going to give me x squared. Now, this is the important part that I want you to pay attention to. So x multiplied by x, this x here, is going to give me x squared. And then x multiplied by this 3 here, I'm going to get plus 3x. Yeah? Then if I take this plus 2 and multiply by this x here, I'm going to get plus 2x. And then if I take the same 2 and I multiply by this plus 3 here, I'm going to get plus 6. Right? Now we know when we're simplifying algebraic expressions that we could only add or subtract like terms. So there are 3 different terms here in this expression. There's this x squared term, right? There's the terms with respect to x, these two are actually the same, right? So I'd underline these two because they're the same. And then there's the number, the integer 6, right? So there are 3 terms, the x squared term, the x terms, and the integer 6. So I could only add like terms. So I can add 3x and 2x, yeah? Now if I add 3x and 2x, then that gives me, just take those lines off. If I add 3x and 2x, I can rewrite this expression now as x squared plus 5x, right? Because 3 and 2 is 5, plus 6. By chance, does this look familiar? Does this look like the quadratic expression that you all are having these grand challenges factorizing? So the reason why I did this is so that you can see the relationship. Now there's a relationship because to expand the brackets down this way, right, gives us the quadratic equation that we try to factor. And when we factor a quadratic equation, or we try to factorize a quadratic equation would have an equal sign, it actually takes us back to the product of 2 brackets. Now, why I wanted to bring this to your attention is mainly because of this line, right? This line in the middle here. This line is very important because these 2 numbers, 2x and 3x, they're added together to give me this number 5x. And usually when we have to factorize a quadratic expression, this number here is one that kind of makes everything difficult. Now let me draw a line down this side. Right, let's draw a line down this side and let's look at a quadratic equation. So let's look at the quadratic equation. Same, I'm going to use the same thing and work it back, right? So I'm going to look at, I'm going to put it in a different color ink. I'm going to look at the quadratic expression. I'm going to look at the quadratic expression, x squared plus 5x plus 6, right? And then we want to factorize this. Right, we want to factorize this. Now, the method we use to factorize quadratic expressions is something called the first by last method, right? It's called the first by last method. Right, so the name of the method is first by last method to factor quadratics. Right, now, although we don't see it here, right, although we're not seeing it here, in front of this x squared, right, is the number 1. Right, we don't really write 1x because I mean it's understood, but there's 1 in front of here. Now the first by last method involves taking the first number in the quadratic, right? In this case, the first number is 1, right? And multiplying it by the last number in the matrix. In this case, that number is 6. So I'm gonna write a bit on the side here. 1 multiplied by positive 6, right? You need to take the signs with these because sometimes you have negative numbers. It's going to give me an answer of plus 6. Now, what I want you to do when you have a question like this and you do the first by the last and you get the number is I want you to list the factors of this number. So the factors of this number, forget the sign, would be 1 and 6. Factors are any two numbers I would multiply to give me back the same number, right? So 1 and 6 can give me 6. 2 and 3 could give me 6 multiplied, right? So 1 multiplied by 6 is 6, right? 2 multiplied by 3 is also 6. So I know that these are two possible sets of factors for the number 6. Understood so far? Right. So now that I did that, I want to look at the factors that I've found. And then I ask myself, which of these two factors can I use to either add or subtract so that I can get the same number that was in the middle here? Right? I don't know if you see where I'm going with this. Obviously, right, for me to get a plus 6, right, a plus 5, sorry, in the middle here, I can't add 1 and 6 and get plus 5. Right? If I add 1 and 6, let's look at the different combinations. If I add 1 and 6 positive, right, because we could list these factors as either positive, both negative, a negative 1 and a positive 6, and a positive 1 and a negative 6. Now 1 plus 6 is 7, minus 1 minus 6 is minus 7. Minus 1 plus 6 is plus 5, right? And 1 minus 6 is minus 5, right? So bear that in mind. Looking at these on this side now. I'm going to do the same thing with the 2 and 3, right? I'm not kind of dragging this out, but I need you to really catch this. 2 plus 3 is going to give me the positive 5, right? And then I could have a negative 2 and a negative 3. There's always 4 combinations for these, right? This will give me negative 5. I can also have a negative 2 and a plus 3. That would give me positive 1. And I can also have a plus 2 and a negative 3. That will give me negative 1. Now, the only two that I can use to give me back positive 5, right? Let me get a different color. Would be these two here. This could give me a positive 5. And so can this give me a positive 5. right? Because I'm trying to use these two factors to get back this middle term here. But the factors that I have to use must also be able to give me this positive 6 when I multiply them together. I must get that positive 6 when I multiply them together. So let's test for that now. So if I take these out, I'm going to write underneath here to save some space, and I multiply -1 by positive 6. Am I going to get positive 6? No, I'm not. I'm going to get a negative 6. But what about positive 2 multiplied by positive 3? Those two would give me a positive 6. So that means that that can work. So what I am really trying to do, guys, is I am trying to split this middle term here back into two terms so that I'm not changing it, right? I'm not changing it. I just want to split it into two terms. I want to write it differently as the sum of two terms, right? I want to write it as the sum of two terms because that is going to allow me to factorize it. You see, in this form here, right, in this form here, I can't factorize because there are only three terms and there's nothing in common between the three terms really. But if I split this middle term up, right, if I split this middle term up and I put everything else back there, right, so I have my x squared and I have my plus 6. I can actually look at this in two parts and I can factor this part first, right? So let's factor that, x squared plus 2x. So when we factorize and we're looking for something in common. So the numbers, they're not really numbers in common, 1 and 2, I mean, that's understood. Letters, we have x's in common and we take the lower power. So if I take the lower power between x to the power 1, because there's a 1 here, although we don't write it, right? And x to the power 2, x is the lower power. Now to get the contents of my bracket, what I'm really doing is I'm dividing each of these terms here, right, by the factor x. So x squared divided by x is going to give me x, right? And 2x divided by x is going to give me 2. Now when I do that and I get this first bracket, I automatically write the contents of that bracket on this side because this has to be the same. This is factoring by grouping, right? So we're using something else to get this quadratic to work out. Now, when I do that, I'm asking myself, what number must I multiply this bracket by so that I can get back this 3x here? I mean, that's pretty straightforward because I have the x there and I'm missing the 3x. So if I put plus 3 here, plus 3 multiplied by x will give me back my 3x. And plus 3 multiplied by plus 2 is going to give me back 6. Yeah? Now that I did that, what is going to happen is you're going to have these two brackets being the same. Yeah, this one and this one is being the same. Right? Now that they're the same, right, I can actually factor that out. I can factor that out. So I can write here x plus 2. And if I take that out from here, then I'm going to remain with x plus 3. Does this look familiar? It does to me. It does look familiar to me. Because if we look on this side here, I actually worked backwards to get towards the brackets. Now, there's a reason why I did that, because I wanted you to see that this term in the quadratic expression, this middle term here, this plus 5x here, what you're doing when you have to factorize a quadratic is you're finding a way to rewrite this term in the middle. You want to rewrite this term, right, in such a way that you're not changing it. You're not changing it because 2x plus 3x is still 5x, but I've found a way to write that 5x differently using two terms instead so that I can do this. So I can divide the equation in two parts. When I divide it in two parts, I can factor the first half, right, initially. And when I factor the first half, I can then factor the second half. What happens when you do this is you're gonna end up with two brackets as the same always. And this is why I would say I would just copy the brackets across. And once I do that, I know that these two is gonna form the contents of the other bracket. Make sense? Right? So factorizing and expanding brackets, there's a relationship between the two. They actually go back and forth. when I expand two brackets like this here, right? When I expand two brackets, I eventually end up with a quadratic. This is a quadratic here. Yeah? And then
Okay.
if I take that same quadratic and I split the middle term up back into these two values and I factorize it, I eventually get back the two brackets that I started with. Make sense?
Yep.
Great. So let me take this off and then we try one together. Let's try one together. Taking everything off. Right. The most challenging part is this part in the corner here. This tends to be the challenge for most people, but with a little bit of practice, you get the hang of it. Right, so let me just rub off everything and then we try another question. So I have an actual, I took a CSEC question. These I just made these up off the top of my head. So I use some small numbers to make it easy to explain for everybody. Right. Right. Nice clean board. Good. Let me get my marker. Right. So the question that I have for you, this is from June 2003, I believe, maths paper, old paper. Question that I have for you is, we're going to look at, where is it? Here it is, 6x squared minus 13x minus 5, right? So let's use the same technique that we just discussed to do that. So what I was saying is that when you're going to do the quadratic, the method that we use is called the first by last method. So first by last means that I'm taking this number here, right? First number, and multiplying it by the last number, this guy here, right? So let's take that across here. I'm going to multiply 6 multiplied by negative 5, right? So initially, when I get the product here, negative 30, I just want you to ignore the sign for a bit, right? I want you to focus on the number 30, and let's think about factors of 30, right? So I like to start from 2, right? 15 by 2, 15 and 2 could give me 30, yeah? What about 3? 10 and 3 could give me 30. 6 and 5 could also give me 30. Is there anything else? No 4s. We have 5. We have 6. Not 7. Not 8. Not 9. We have 10 already. Not 11. Not 12. Yeah, I think that's about it. So now that I have identified these factors, I now want to ask myself which of these could give me the number in the middle. This number in the middle that I want to get is minus 13. So what I'm trying to do is rewrite this expression here now and split this term up, this 13, right, as two numbers. So let's see. 6 and 5 is definitely out, because if I add or subtract that, I can't get 13. These two are possibilities, so we want to look at them. Now, the signs is what tends to give a lot of people trouble, and how I overcome that is I am going to write these numbers 4 times, because there's 4 combinations of signs that you can actually get. And then I just test each of them and see which one I'll get minus 13 with. Yeah, we don't want to make it too difficult. So we could either have plus 15 and plus 2. We could have minus 15 and minus 2. I can have minus 15 and plus 2. And I can have plus 15 and minus 2. So this gives me 17, so that's out. This also gives me 17, so that's out. This gives me minus 13, so that's a possible candidate. And this gives me plus 13, so that's out. So far, this is the only one that looks possible. Let's look at the 5 and 2. Sorry, the 10 and 3. So we have 10 and 3. Could be plus, yeah, you're going to get positive 13 here. I can also do negative 10 and negative 3. That gives me the negative 13 as well, right? So that's a possible one. There's negative 10 and plus 3. That doesn't work because I get negative 7 there. And then that's plus 10 and negative 3. That doesn't work because I get plus 7 there, right? Now, how do I decide which of these two am I going to use? I have to use the one that gives me, when I multiply them, I must be able to get at minus 30 that we calculated earlier, right? So negative 15 multiplied by positive 2 gives me negative 30. And let's see, negative 10 multiplied by negative 3, that gives me plus 30. So you see, we eliminate one. This can't work because I'm getting plus 30 here, so this is out. It means therefore that the two numbers that I have to use is going to be this negative 15 and positive 2. Because if I multiply these two together, I get the negative 30 that I started with initially from the first by last method. And if I say negative 15 plus 2, I get the negative 13 that I want to split in the middle here. So let's see what happens when I write that in. Right, now once we get this part done, then the majority of the quadratic equation is more or less completed. Right, it's just a matter of factoring it now. So let's see, I have 6x squared. Right, sometimes you could kind of move these things around, shift it around, so it makes it easier for you. So I'm actually going to put the plus 2 first, because plus 2 and 6 is easier to factor than if I put a 15 there. And then I'm going to write the negative 15x second. It doesn't matter the order I write them in, because I'm still going to get the same negative 13. But it's easier to factor this way because 5 and 15 is in common, 6 and 2 are something in common. Now, once I get to this line, this is the magic line. This is where all the magic happens, because I can split this up into two parts. And now I can actually start factoring. I'm going to just look at this area here alone initially. Right, just here. So I look at this to factor. I'm looking at 6 and 2 first to see what is the highest common factor. And my highest common factor for 6 and 2 is 2. My highest common factor between x squared and x is going to be the lower power. In this case, it's going to be x. And then I write my brackets. And I'm dividing each of these by the factor 2x. So 6x squared divided by 2x, I'll just do it quickly in the corner here as a quick refresh. We can treat it like this in our what happened there? Just one sec. Right, so I can treat this as 6x squared here divided by 2x. Easy to divide these because you just work your numbers off first. 6 would go in, 2 would go into 6 3 times, and then one of these x's cancel it, one from here, and I remain with x. All right, so inside of my bracket, I'm gonna get 3x. Right, and it will make sense because if I multiply this, I'll get back the 6x squared. Now 2x into 2x, well, I'm gonna get 1. Yeah. Now once I have this bracket here, my trick is that I automatically write this bracket back, because they must be the same in order for this to work out, right? So I'm not going to try to figure that out. And then what I do is I now look at this too, and I need to get a negative 15x. I have 3x here. So what must I multiply 3 by in order to get negative 15? And we know 5 3s is going to give me 15. And if I need that to be negative, then I need a negative sign here. Once I've gotten to this line, then things are shaping up nicely, because now I have matching brackets. And because I have matching brackets, I can now factor that out. All right, so I get 3x in one bracket. Oops, just made a little mistake there. Let me just rub that off. All right, nice. So I get 3x. All right, and then 2x plus 5 that remains. Okay, I don't know why that's happening to my marker. Let me just check to make sure that's connected properly. You can tell me what I'm going to get in these two brackets here while I try to sort this out. What do you think I'm going to get? My first bracket is going to be that 3x plus 1. I think I'm all connected again.
Second one will be 2x minus 5.
Correct. 2x minus 5. All right. Excellent. So you got the hang of it.
Yes.
Excellent. So I'm just typing it because I don't know, my marker just is not responding to the keypad. So 3x plus 1, and we're going to get 2x minus 5. And that is going to be me factorizing this quadratic expression. Yeah? So just a quick video that I was doing today, nothing too difficult. These are some of the things that I do in the paid version of the course. I actually have these listed by topics. So as we continue, I'm going to just continue doing some random topics with you guys. You can always message in the group and tell me, what is giving you trouble, and I can do these one-off sessions to help you understand it better. So I hope this was helpful for you. I'd save the recording and I would upload it to YouTube and share it in the group. All right. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to come out and do the session with me. I appreciate it a lot, and I really hope it was beneficial. Was it?
It was. Thank you.
All right, no problem. You have a great night and enjoy the rest of the week at school.